I'm Deacon Robinson of Mount Orange Missionary Baptist Church. We're located at 2510 West 10th Street, where my pastor is Pastor Bishop Johnny Riley. I will be bringing to you an overview of our Sunday school lesson this Sunday, which is found in the book of Esther. And the topic is Justice Prevails. But before we get started, let me begin with prayer. Father, today I'm just so grateful to you that you chose to use me to speak to your people. Thank you for using me as a vessel to distribute your word to your people. Now, Lord, will you touch my heart, touch my soul, touch my mind, so I may decrease so you may increase. And I pray that your will be done through my deliverance of this lesson. Thank you and amen. All right. Today's lesson is Justice Prevails. And it's coming from the book of Esther. Even though Esther is one of the main characters of this lesson, but there's other people in this lesson that are real important to the lesson. That would be the king, Esther, Haman, and Mordecai. This lesson brings out, shows how God will use or will do extraordinary things with ordinary people. When he decided that he wanted to bring justice to his people, the Jews, that was in the land of Persia, who would have thought that he would use a 14-year-old girl to bring about this change? Let me put some background, a little bit of background on the story. King Cyrus had a feast. And during this feast, he gathered up all of his princes and leaders from all the provinces of his region. He had a huge region where it reached all the way from India into Ethiopia. He had 127 provinces. Now, on this particular time, when this feast was going on the seventh day, the king he kind of loaded himself up pretty good with wine. Now, as the king and his princes were all having their meeting, so was the queen. And so he sent for the queen to come and show herself off for all of his princes, and she refused. That giving an opportunity for Esther to take her place as queen, because of her refusal, she was then divorced by the king. So the king put out a decree that he wanted his chamberlain to go out and gather young virgins to bring and prepare them for him to review. Today we would call that a beauty pageant. And Esther's cousin, who was Mordecai, encouraged her to be a part of this pageant. Well, Esther's character and God's preparedness got her so ready that through this process, these virgins would go through a process of cleanliness for a whole year. And then they would go in to see the king, and then, if he liked them, then they would stay, but if he didn't, he would put them out. And I don't know what order Esther was in rotation, but once she went in, she won the contest. The king did not see anybody else, he chose her. Thus the story began. After Esther had been queen for a little while, about a year. This Haman, as I mentioned earlier, had started plotting. He was plotting to have all the Jews destroyed. So our lesson starts in Esther chapter 7, where Esther had invited the king and Haman to a feast that she was having in honor of the king. And we read the first outline says, justice, a plea for justice. And that's in verses 1 through 4, where Esther asked the king to come to this feast, and he and Haman, and he did. So this was the second feast. At this feast, the king asked it, well, what would you have? What is your request? And then Esther said, then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me, and my petition, and my people in my request. So this is where she is pleading for justice for her and her people. And I'm sure the king at this time was trying to figure out what is she talking about? Spare her life and her people. Haman had put together a decree, and the king had signed it, not knowing that he had signed a decree to put his wife to death. But when it was exposed, then he had to take a look at it. Now, that was the plea for justice. And in the second outline, it says, injustice exposed. And that starts with verse 5 through 8. Then the king answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he and where is he that doeth presume in his heart to do so? And Esther said, the adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman. And Haman was afraid before the king. Haman had put this together, not knowing that he was going to be exposed in this manner. Now, if you go back and read in the book of Esther in chapter 6, where she had the first feast, Haman went home and was telling his wife and his friends that, I got to be important. He was a very powerful man. Got to be important because the queen had a feast for her husband. She invited nobody but me. And so I got to be important. So he really felt like he was being honored and lifted up. Little did he know that God had a different plan for him. Well, throughout the book of Esther, you find, especially after in chapter 3, 4, where Mordecai and Haman had crossed ways several times, and Mordecai was definitely not pleased with Haman. Haman was not pleased with Mordecai because Mordecai would not bow down to him or honor him. So he was not pleased with Haman's behavior, Mordecai's behavior. So he had built a gallows to hang him. And this decree that, as soon as it went into effect, was going to give him the perfect opportunity. So he was looking forward to that day. So now that he's exposed, and he knows that he is the one that created this problem, and he saw the anger in the king's face, the king just got up and went out in the garden, the palace garden, and walked around and kind of gathered his thoughts. And as he come back into the palace where the queen was, Haman was trying to plead to her, and he found himself in a position where it appeared like he was trying to take advantage of it. So the king said, now would this man now try to force himself on my queen in my presence? So when he said that, the chamberlain came out, took hold of Haman, and covered his face. And as they were taking him out, one of them said, the gallows that Haman had put together is down in his house. And this is in the next outline, verses 9 and 10. Behold also, the gallows, which is 50 cubits high, which Haman had made for Mordecai, who spoke good of the king, standeth in the house of Haman. Then the king said, hang him on. The justice prevailing that, showing that it's not good to try to destroy God's people. And that was the plot that Haman had here. This lesson tells us, show us that that is not a good practice. To work hard to destroy God's people. He tells us in many verses in the Bible, He's with us, He protects us. We got to believe and trust Him. This lesson always also tells us how God can use anybody to do His will, to do His work. Esther and her cousin Mordecai were a Jewish family who stayed behind in Persia after there was a decree about 50 years before that said that they could go back home. But for Haman and Mordecai and his family stayed in Persia. And by doing so, Esther was then elevated to the position of queen to bring to acquire justice for her people. When God puts you in a position, or He uses you in a position to eradicate His people, you got to be willing, and you also got to be tough. Esther was humble, very humble, but she was tough because she faced opposition. When you choose to take these positions, sometimes it's life-threatening. Jesus gave His life. Esther was willing to give hers because in the scripture she said, her cousin told her, said, look, don't be afraid because maybe God put you in this position just for a time like this. Which was words of encouragement to her as such. At that time, she, in her mind, said, you know, I will do this for my people, and if I die, I die. How many of us are willing to go that far for God's people? Even for our own life, if it's standing up for God. Will we do that? Are we willing to go that far? Think about the opportunities that God might put you in and how He could use you to carry on the gospel today. The scripture said, harvest is plenty, but the labors are few. Are you willing to be a laborer for God today? Thank you.